Hi out there. Thanks for tuning in to the Brave Files podcast. This is your host, Heather Vickery. You know, everything we really want is just on the other side of uncomfortable. I say this a lot, but seriously, I'm wondering, how often do you miss out on some of the most incredible opportunities because they require you to step out of your comfort zone, stretch yourself, and face those fears? I get it. It's scary. It's a very difficult thing to get out of your comfort zone. But the thing that sets successful people apart isn't that they're fearless. It's not that they don't feel fear. It's that they feel the fear. They take it apart, dissect it, learn from it, and then they bravely charge ahead because they know it's worth the discomfort and the effort. If you're ready to step into a new, stronger, more powerful version of yourself and create a business and a life that you love, then I have just the thing for you. Join us for Intentionally Brave Week, a free event in my group, Brave on Purpose, that's hosted in Facebook. In this event, I will walk you through my Brave method. It's my proven process to help my clients and myself achieve more with less effort and be happy while doing it. Intentionally Brave Week starts in just a few days. I'll be going live every day from February 25th through March 2nd at 11 a.m. Central with a replay in the evening. Register today so that you can join us for this amazing week. Just search Brave on Purpose in Facebook, answer the 3 simple questions, and mark your calendars. I'm so excited to share my Brave method with you, and I cannot wait to see you there. Okay, so this week's episode is a really powerful one. I chatted with Mary Rutt from the Latter Day Lesbian podcast about her personal experience with religious recovery and sexual abuse recovery. We learned that it's okay for girls to say no. Not that this is new, but we talk about it in detail. We talk about trusting yourself to make changes and create a different life for yourself, and the importance of bonding with people who have had similar experiences as you. Mary is an incredible storyteller, and this is such a fantastic conversation. So grab a cup of coffee, get cozy, and enjoy the episode.
Tenacious, resilient, optimistic.
This is Heather Vickery, and you're listening to The Brave Files. Stories from people living courageously. When we choose bravely in big and small ways, it powerfully elevates our lives. I hope these stories connect with you and encourage you to embrace bravery in every possible way, day after day. Together, we can build a movement of courageous living that enriches both our lives and our communities. And if you enjoy the show, I ask you to please share it with others. Maybe think of someone who you want to choose bravely right alongside you. Thanks for tuning in. Now here's the show. Hey everybody, welcome to the Brave Files. I'm really excited you decided to join us today. You're in for a really fun surprise treat, I have to tell you. So quite a while ago, we had a woman named Shelly Johnson on the show. And Shelly is just kind of a total badass. But you know what is even cool? Is so is her partner, Mary, who is our guest today. And I could not wait to have some quality time with Miss Mary Rutt, who has become one of my dearest friends. And Mary and Shelly host the Latter Day Lesbian podcast. I'm just going to jump in because I cannot wait. Mary, Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thanks for having me. We've been wanting to connect, and I'm so glad we could make this happen.
Yeah, me too. So, you know, you're like the quiet one behind Shelly, who gets a lot of attention, and not that she doesn't deserve it. She's incredible. But you have done so many wonderful things in your life and overcome so much. And also, you decided to partner up with a woman who left an extreme religion after 40 years and had 7 kids and then start a podcast and tell the world about it. I mean, hello.
I know, and I'm admittedly not a kid person, so that's interesting.
It is interesting.
Yeah. We went to Frozen 2 yesterday as a family. There were 6 of them, 6 of those kids yesterday at the movies, so I did really well.
And I know that at least one of the kids did not like the movie.
Oh, right, Philip. Well, but does he like anything, really?
So
Okay, I've been at the beach with this kid, and he is dodging waves, and there's a smile on his face. Looks like he's having a great time. We're walking back to the car, and he's like, oh, that wasn't that great.
no. There are some folks who are just like that. So,
Yeah.
listeners who have no idea what we're talking about,
hmm
if you haven't listened to Latter Day Lesbian, you should, and you'll get to know some fun stories of Shelley's kids. But
I'm sort of the Ed McMahon of podcasting, I've decided.
you are. I love it. I love it.
I laugh
so
a lot. I add the commentary.
That's so great.
hmm
There are a lot of things I want to talk to you about, and I've had the privilege of getting to become one of your actual friends. So
That's right.
That's like a claim to fame for me because y'all are a little celebrity like.
I don't know about that.
I was told that when I interviewed Shelley, I sounded like I had a girl crush, and I said I don't. I mean, I love Shelley, and she's amazing, but it was a podcast crush. I was like, these ladies are doing amazing things. So there's a lot that I want to share with everybody, but let's just go with the easy, low-hanging fruit. You got involved with Shelley, and at what point did you think, wow, this is something we should talk to other people about? We should start a podcast.
Yeah, the podcast came a little bit later, but the idea that we should get her story out there and see what happens came pretty early. So I knew her a couple months. We met online on a dating site. And as I started to hear her story about her background, I just started thinking, wow, you have the ability to help people. We got to figure out what that is because I knew I was going to be part of it in some way. And I'm not saying that I don't have that ability too. I just thought her story was very specific. And also, I was raised by a narcissist, and I think that manifests itself in a couple of ways. One way is you could be like, oh, I need attention, and I never got it. Attention here, please, attention here, please. Or you can fade into the background, which is something that I learned to do growing up, raised by a narcissist. So I took on that role of sort of assisting other people. Let's help you guys. Let's help you shine or whatever. So I am working through that. And I think that as a co host on a podcast, I'm certainly breaking out of that a little bit. Yeah, she does do a little bit more of the talking generally. But I'm really excited about this podcast because then I've been thinking about some things I want to share to your listeners that I haven't shared on my podcast yet. But as far as getting the word, we're starting to tell the story of Shelley's upbringing. And I just had this feeling that she would be able to inspire other people to take leaps in their life because, being raised in a cult, which she says she was, and I believe her. Everything, all signs point to yes. The Magic 8 Ball says that Mormonism is a cult, at least in my opinion.
And we leave space for everybody to have their own opinion, but certainly from Shelley's lived experiences, that is where she's landed.
Exactly. In fact, we are reading a book about LDS, Latter-day Saints brainwashing right now. As a matter of fact, I don't have the title of it, but I'll let you know what I think of that book. But so I just felt like she was going to be influential. She was going to be able to help people. Her story was going to be inspiring to so many, and I wanted to figure out what that was. And I have worked in production for my entire adult life, and my career is production, video and audio production. So I thought, could it be a documentary? Maybe that's how we're going to tell her story. Is it going to be through a book? And all that could still come. Who knows? But then I thought, kids today, they're doing these podcasts. We can get in on that. We can figure that out pretty easily. And, at first, and when the audio quality and that sort of thing, and we were a little bit tentative when we first started it, and you can hear that, I think, in the first few episodes. But we quickly get the hang of it. We got a guy who's our sound guy. Name is Dan. Thanks, Dan. And he helps us. He gave us the advice of the right equipment to get, the right microphones, all that sort of, it's been an evolving process to where we are now.
It always is. My Andrew has done that for me. Mm-hmm. Hi, Andrew. He listens because he edits everything.
Exactly.
And he saves my ass week after week.
Absolutely.
You cannot underestimate having a team of folks to help you produce a podcast. Yes. So when you started the show, the idea was just to get Shelley's story out. Did it ever occur to you that you had a story that might support others and help others as well?
At that time, no, I didn't, because again, I usually am a sort of a background supportive role. That's generally what I do.
Hmm.
I always knew the correct side of the camera to be on, and I use that literally in my career because I interview people not for my living, not exclusively, but I do that as part of my role. Is I also interview other people. I work in broadcasting, I work in public media. So there you go. But yeah, at that time, I don't think that I thought that I would necessarily be adding. I didn't think through it, honestly. Um,
Sure.
I guess
But
but I live my life that way. I don't really think through a lot of long-term decisions. I gotta just go for it.
you go by intuition, my friend.
I do.
Um, but is it fair to say that as you've developed a strong listenership, and you girls have a really strong community of listeners, that you've discovered that you have something that also supports and heals?
Yeah, I do. And I also have uncovered some trauma that I do want to share more about my history and what has, turned me into the woman that I am now, and all of our life experiences lead up to and they build upon one another and they
Sure thing.
create who we are as adults, and I don't want to discount all that. A lot of it I don't think I spend a lot of time unpacking and thinking about because I don't know if I can. It feels like I can't rely on my memories in a lot of cases, or I've just blocked some things.
Sure. I
Yeah.
think that's entirely possible. Sometimes things are too hard to stay out in the forefront of our minds. And one of the things that, from where I sit, I think has probably had a tremendous impact on your life, more so than up until recently, maybe you've recognized. And we've talked about this a couple of times. I'd be honored if you would share the story of your father's death
Yeah.
and what happened to you with that.
I will, and then I want to share another story about abuse that came later.
Okay.
So, when I was 12, my father was a lot older. So, he was 24 years older than my mother. I was the youngest of three. So, my mother was 34 when she had me. Add 24 years to that. I'm not really good with math. But I think he was what, 58 when I was born? Is that right?
Yeah, much older. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So when I was 12, he would have been 70. I think that's the right math. And also, he was trying to sort of live a life of a younger person. He bought this, we had a trailer that he would drag behind a Cadillac because there were no SUVs back then.
All
This,
right.
this car got 4 miles to the gallon. Yeah, so that's what we would do for family trips. We would haul this trailer around. And he decided he wanted to find a big truck, like a in this case, it was a potato chip truck. He bought a potato chip truck that he wanted to convert into a motorhome. And he started this project about 69, 70 years old.
I mean, that's like like the new tiny homes stuff,
I
but
know, right? He
kind of
couldn't
badass.
just buy a motorhome. No, he had to, upcycle or whatever, reuse the
I kind of love it. Not
I
gonna
do
lie.
too. I admire the fortitude or whatever that went into the thinking of this project, but it killed him. It killed him. At least from
Hmm.
my perspective, that's what happened. He was lifting refrigerators and trying to move it from one to the other by himself and doing all this stuff, exerting all this energy. And he wasn't particularly active since his retirement. And he we don't know exactly how he died. It could have been a heart attack, could have been pulmonary embolism, could have been combination. We didn't have an autopsy, but I was in seventh grade and I was riding the bus home from school, and the idea popped in my head. Oh my gosh, he's dead! Like it popped in
What?
my head. Yeah,
I didn't know that part of the story,
yeah,
that you intuitively knew it.
yeah. It's like I almost had a warning.
Oh, wow.
But I knew he was also bedridden, and he gave us like a tearful sort of goodbye hug the night before. So I knew it was a possibility,
Okay.
but it popped, I felt like it popped in my head so clearly, like a message. Yeah,
And
almost as a
then
warning.
What happened?
And I was my heart started racing. I walked a little faster. I was feeling dread. And I was trying to push that thought out of my head. No, it's not true. It's not true. It can't be. And I walk in. I'm the only one home. I call his name. I hear nothing. And I walk towards his bedroom, and he had gotten up from his bed, presumably to get something to eat or to use the toilet or whatever he was doing. And he had collapsed on the floor, and I found him.
Deceased.
Yeah. Yep. And
Oh
clearly,
my
I mean,
gosh.
when you and see the way that dead bodies are portrayed in movies and in shows like SVU or whatever, it's not exactly what you encounter when it's fresh, like several hours old, let's say. The blood pools wherever in the extremities, wherever it sort of lands, and it pools to the surface in these dark purple blotches all over the arms and the legs. And he was completely
Wow.
stiff and
How long
lifeless.
do you think he'd been gone?
I'd say probably 4 to 6 hours is my guess.
Okay.
I don't know. I mean,
Wow.
a while, that whole
Okay.
day. And he was stiff, lifeless, and that's what his arms and legs looked like. I didn't even need to go near him to know he was dead. I had never encountered a dead body before at 12, but I knew that the life was gone, and
It
I
is
knew he was gone.
unbelievably traumatic for a 12-year-old to experience.
Oh yeah, yeah,
So what does 12-year-old Mary do at that point?
yeah. Well, I panicked for a
Mhm.
while. It felt like minutes. It probably wasn't, but of course, I could feel my heartbeat and hear it so loud in my ears and feel it in my chest. It's like that sort of moment, and just sort of everything's locked in time. And but I jumped into problem solving mode. I really did. I called the school where my mom worked to see if we could track her down, and she was probably already on her way home because they tried to track her down and couldn't find her, and they could tell I was panicked. And I told them that my father I found him collapsed, and I didn't say the word dead, but I knew he was.
Right.
And then that was sort of a dead end. So I ran across the street to my neighbors, and they were home because they were also retired. And at that point, my neighbor went over and assess the situation, and I guess called because I think you have to call do you call the police? Or yeah, I think we have to call the police when when there's a death in the home. At any situation, you call the
Or
police like that.
911 in
Yeah, 911,
general. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, an ambulance was sent, and who knows who else came. But then my mother and my sister arrive home from school at that point, and so I run over to them and tell them what's going on. And I just am like the bearer of this news at this
It's
point.
too much for a 12-year-old.
Oh my God. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
How do you think that experience has shaped the way you move through the rest of your life?
Well, I can solve any problem for you pretty much, or I can find someone who will.
Yeah, you are a problem solver.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. And I wasn't up to that point. I was fairly timid and didn't necessarily need to make my own decisions certainly about big things, or have opinions about things. And I think that experience changed me. Changed me. My sister said I started sleeping with my back towards the world and started facing the wall. I don't know. I wasn't aware.
Oh,
Yeah, I
fascinating.
know. Because
Because
yeah.
I don't find you to be the type of person that turns your back on anything. You are a welcoming and loving human. I wonder if, so that's one of the things I wanted to ask about, and I wonder if this is related. You've shared with me, and I'd love for you to share with everybody else, that your mother was very religious, but your father was not. And what was
Hmm.
that dynamic like? And then I wonder if maybe you shifted in that space after he died, and that's what your sister was talking about.
Well, I was definitely, I think, and that I don't think that period of lasted a really long time where I wanted to shut everybody out, but I did
Okay.
go through that. And I think, it's just, it's simple math in the therapy language
Well,
where,
yeah.
people you love go away. People you love and rely on don't leave you, and you can't count on them. And I think I went through that for a long time, and just felt like if you risk and you love people, see, you get hurt. And I
Oh,
think, I mean, in the most basic ways, I think I went through that and wanted to shut people out. And I learned to be super sarcastic, and I sharpened my wit in that way. I could take you down easily with an insult, with like a funny quip. I learned to do that, and I had to unlearn that
right.
because that was my humor brand for a really long time. And then I realized, wow, that's mean spirited. It really is.
It can be.
Oh
I mean, you
yeah.
have a great sense of humor, but I also find you to be gentle and tender with other people's feelings.
Well, and thank you. And that took a while to learn, because when I just I I just wanted to have all my defenses sharp for the world because I felt like I was fucked by it. Can I say the F bomb on your
Yeah.
show?
We like that word around here. It's all good.
Okay. I was also mad at God, or who I perceived God to be.
Yeah.
Because why does God hurt little girls? Why does he allow that? Because that was my image of him. Why does that happen? Why is that allowed? And people go through that. It's not just. It's funny though. Religious people are taught to just always accept whatever God is a benevolent God, but he's also a just God. He's a fair God. He's an angry God. You get all these views of who God is based on Old Testament books. They were spoiler alert, cobbled together by men, and they were written in completely different times, and they were stories passed down through generations. Think that's going to be accurate? I think those were fables, personally, but I digress.
And they could be fables or they could be true. And the truth of the matter is, I don't know. But what we do know is that they were written by men, and literally by men, and that they were written over different times
Yes.
throughout history and put together into one book. So that we do know. And some folks are then going to infer that they're fables, that they've been made up. Some folks are going to believe, and you get to do whatever you want. But tell us what your dad's take on religion was.
Yeah, well, he wasn't. He called himself an atheist. Probably could have been agnostic. I don't know. There's a little difference between the two,
Well,
right?
yeah, the difference is agnostics, which is sort of where I fall, believe in some sort of universal guidance of some type. There's something. We believe in the ability or the possibility of something.
Gotcha.
We just don't know what. And atheists don't. They're like, nah, all
Yeah.
that shit's made up.
Okay, well, I think I'm in the agnostic camp as well, and I think
Okay.
he was more of an atheist. He was, he was an engineer. He was a science guy. When he and my mother got together, she wasn't a believer. I think that they probably went to church of some sort growing up, but she wasn't into it in a meaningful way. She decided she wanted to take her kids to the nursery school or whatever. In this little town I grew up in, we had a handful of churches, and one of them was this little Methodist church. And for whatever reason, she decided to take us there. And that's kind of where it started, is she would take us to church or Sunday school or nursery, in my case, on a Sunday morning at this Methodist church. And my father was like, yeah, okay, whatever, because he didn't think there was anything to it. She just wanted us to have some sort of, I don't know, religious experience. I'm not sure exactly why at that point, but the minister went off to, this was the 70s, and the minister went off to some sort of revival tent meeting thing. And he came back like filled with the Holy Spirit. I don't know how that happens. I'm not sure what happened to him, but that's what happened. He came back revved up, full of the Holy Spirit, and he knew that the majority of the parishioners in that sleepy little town wouldn't be into it. So he started this group on the side, and they met once a week, and my mother became part of that because her friends started going. And that's kind of what happened. It became, in my opinion, a drug for her. So she would get all hyped up on the Holy Spirit and Jesus in this big way that, some people feel like they really feel their spirituality. Like they go to a church service
Sure.
or however they encounter that,
Yep.
and they really feel something that they can attribute to God or Jesus or the Spirit or whatever you want to call it.
Absolutely. So how did your mom reconcile all of that with dad being atheist?
I know. Well, that was really challenging.
And how did it affect you, more importantly?
Yeah. Well, he told her at one time, and they kept us. They didn't show a lot of this in front of the kids. They kept us from that. But he one time told her he was jealous of Jesus, and I could understand that.
Sure.
Because when they got together, Jesus wasn't in the picture, and suddenly Jesus is everything, and he thought she was having an affair with a pastor at one time. He came
Oh,
home
wow.
he came home from a business trip. Our oldest sister was babysitting. He's like, "Where's your mother?" She said, "I have church." So he drives to church. He barges in on some prayer meeting, and
Wow.
and my mother is surrounded by everyone, like lots of people, not just the minister. But he gives her a look, and she's like, "I gotta go." So she leaves the meeting. But yeah, it was a big struggle for the two of them. I remember I was going to also kind of not a Sunday school, but it was like a youth group sort of a thing on the side. And a woman taught the youth group that I was going to was at her house, and she was telling about a miracle. And the miracle was that there was, I don't know, some Italian family, and they were making pasta, and they didn't have a lot of money. And the mother was like, "I don't think this pasta's gonna. I mean, I can make it last for this entire family." And so she prays about this pasta. And lo and behold, at the end of cooking the pasta, there's enough to feed everyone. My mother should have been like, "Okay, you're a dumbass. Pasta expands in water."
I was just thinking that. Pasta grows. That's
It really
what happens
does.
with
It
pasta.
really does. Bad example, Christian lady, at this Bible study. Yeah. So my father said, "How can you believe that stuff?" He said that to me. I was probably 10. And I didn't
Oh,
have
wow.
the vocabulary to say, "Because your wife makes me."
Yeah.
That was what I was probably thinking, or I'm thinking now, looking
Yeah.
back. I was just confused at the time. Why am I getting these mixed messages from my parents?
Yeah. That's a difficult and unfair position to put kids in. Although I think there's something to be said for having watched them have different perspectives. You then felt like you had the right to decide for yourself as you got older what you wanted to believe in, instead of sort of being cornered into believing what both parents believed.
Yeah.
Um,
It did kind of give me permission to explore, I think.
yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
So you had mentioned that recently you've sort of reconnected with some slightly more unpleasant memories.
Yeah, yes. And we are going to unveil it here, Heather. So through the podcast that Shelley and I manage, Latter Day Lesbian, we talk about grooming as a big factor in some Mormon childhood, like some Mormon upbringing. It could be grooming from a family member. Oftentimes it's a bishop. And what happens
Do you
is,
mean, wait, can you define grooming
yes,
for us?
yep. So what happens is the bishop, let's say, will have a child in his office, and it's always a man. And kids as young as 11 years old in the Latter-day Saints religion are allowed to be asked one-on-one interview questions by their bishops, who's the head of the congregation, and no one else has to be in the room. It's not a requirement.
Which already puts me as a mom on alert.
Oh, for
I
sure.
don't like that.
For sure. And I'm not here to say that every bishop does this. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying in some cases what happens is a child is asked these questions, and it used to be, basically they're trying to ascertain, are you worthy? This is a worthiness interview that this man, this bishop, head of the church, is asking a young child, are you worthy? Which right there, to me, this is wrong on so many levels.
And by worthy, we mean of God?
Saving, of religion, of
Okay. All
a
right.
temple. Like later, this is a jumping off place for boys, especially to get this priesthood, which means that down the road, and they rise up through the ranks of this priesthood, this male, I don't know, whatever this godly track is, to becoming potentially, if you ride the track all the way up, you could become the prophet one day. You could be the head of the Mormon faith. If you do it right, if you're the worthy young boy, you could be prophet one day. But it starts as a 12-year-old, and you are inducted into this priesthood, is what they call it. And then you're a deacon, I think, at that point. You're allowed to pass the sacrament. At 16, as a boy, on this priesthood track, you can actually baptize people. You can take them
Right.
into a pool or a lake or something and actually baptize them in the name of Jesus. You are able to
Okay.
do this without any sort of training, without seminary, counseling, or anything. You're allowed to do this sort of thing as a boy.
Okay. So you're learning all about this through the
Mhm.
conversations with Shelley and through the podcast.
Yes.
And what does it bring up for you?
So these worthiness interviews, kids are asked questions such as, um, do you obey the laws of chastity? And then it can become more specific, like, do you masturbate? Do you touch yourself? Where? Show me. This is the type of thing I'm talking
Show
about.
me.
Show me. So, what bishops could do, or members of the family, if there's any abuse in families, is to make you feel like that you can trust them. It starts slowly. Grooming is a slow process where someone who has nefarious plans for you in a adult position to a child gets their trust. That gains their trust somehow. And so down the road, when they're asking these questions, you comply because you think you're supposed to be able to trust them, because that's the foundation they've laid for you, is that you can trust me. I've known you for so long. I've known you since you were a
Right.
child. You can trust me.
Right.
Your parents have been going to this congregation. You can trust me. And I looked at that through a lens in my own life, and that happened to me. It was an uncle, and this uncle would always tell me I was his favorite niece. He would kiss me on the head and tell me I was beautiful all the time, and tell me how much he loved me. He would give me money. And so when my father died,
Yeah, and some folks are gonna be like, "Well, that's just so nice that the
mhm,
uncle cared for you that much." But I don't think that's where you're going with this.
it isn't where I'm going with this. And that, I guess, is fine all on its own. If it stops there, yeah, I guess it's
Right.
okay. I really don't know why you have to single someone out and tell them they're your favorite.
Well,
But
I agree. That's just like not great humanism, but
right.
yeah.
And I always felt like more special than my sisters to my uncle, because he let me think that. Like, he wanted me to think I was special. And what kid doesn't want to feel special
Right.
and set apart? Every kid
Right.
wants that. Yeah. So when my father died, he decided he wanted to pay extra attention to me. He let everybody know that he's going to, take me under his wing, kind of a thing. And so more of that, more of being there for me, telling me how, and he made me feel good. He made me feel cared for. And
Right.
he did all that on purpose. So when he kissed me romantically, it was kind of easier to take, because here we were, such good friends. I'm
Can I
14
ask?
now.
Yeah, you're 14. How old was he? Not that it would ever be
Yeah,
okay, but I'm just
40 maybe.
okay. Oh,
Yeah, 40s, I'd say. And here's where it becomes a story a positive story for change. So he kisses me one evening, and this goes on a few times. Like, I see him a few times after this, and this sort of thing is happening, and he gets a little handsy. So one time in particular, he was on his bed under the covers on his stomach. I'll never forget it. And I was walking up to the room I was staying in, and he said, "Hey, Mary, come here." So I come in, he's like, I've got this place on my back. Do you mind giving me a back rub? So I was like, oh, okay. So I get on straddle his back, and start giving him a back rub. Well, he reaches behind. This is graphic. Is it okay? It's
yeah.
graphic.
We'll just make sure we mark it as such and let folks know
Okay.
in advance. Yeah.
I'm wearing clothes, but he reaches behind to put his hand between my legs to touch me there.
Oh my God.
And I had decided at that moment, no, he crossed a line. Now it's gone too far. The other stuff, I don't know. I don't know why that was okay to a point, and who
Well,
knows why. And I felt culpable in that for a long time afterwards. But I stopped it. I did. I was 14. I was like, nope, this is not okay. This is not okay. And I got up, walked out of the room. He didn't try to follow me. He didn't get aggressive. He didn't force himself on me, thankfully. And that was the end of it. I stopped it. And
wow.
I've always
Which
felt
is
really,
lucky that he didn't, not that,
oh
I mean, it's
yeah.
terrible that you were ever in that situation, but I think a lot of gross people would have
Oh yeah. Could have
challenged
gotten a
that.
lot worse. Definitely could have gotten a lot worse.
What did you tell anybody?
My sisters knew that something was going on. They don't know the extent of it. They still don't. And this was the heartbreaking thing. My sister had a conversation with my mother about it, about just that there was something happening between us. And she said, "It can't be true. I can't have let that happened to my daughter. So she denied
Right.
it.
So it's about her and the fact that if that happened to you, she has failed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you've indicated to me and numerous times that your mother is a narcissist.
I believe, yes.
Yeah. How has that affected you, and how has it impacted who you want to be in the world?
Well, I don't want to be that.
Good. That's good.
Um, and I feel like I've just always been in a supporting role. I've always made sure she was okay. Even through my father dying, it felt like it was more about her than anything else. It's always been. And so I wanted her to be okay. Like I put my own
Yeah.
grief, I mean, I did grieve for sure. We all did. But I almost took on the role of protecting her. Maybe it was a distraction from my grief.
Sure. I do believe a lot of children do that instinctively
Yeah.
when they feel like a parent is struggling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I remember I started sitting in his place at the dinner table. And I think I did
Oh,
that
wow.
yeah, I did that because I didn't want us to all look at an empty chair.
See, but that's to me just sort of the perfect example of the kind of kind-hearted human you are. Like, I can do this and then other people won't suffer.
Yeah.
Which also leads into the work you're doing on your podcast. And it's grown, right? It used to be telling Shelley's story. It was never telling Mary's, and hopefully that will shift a little. But where is it now? Where are you hoping to grow with it?
Yeah, it's interesting because we've sort of stopped telling either of our stories. I mean, we offer commentary, but now it almost seems like it's about other people's stories. That's
Yeah.
the neat thing about it. We were doing this as an experiment. Let's get Shelley's story out there, see what happens on a podcast. And the letters started flooding in. You know, the first wave, I think, was from other ex Mormon lesbians who were like, oh my gosh, I thought I was the only one who felt this way.
Yeah.
Holy crap, someone is articulating what I've gone through. And then another wave was, well, I'm gay. I'm a gay man, or I'm someone who I'm a transgender person, and I can relate to your story. And I was also raised Mormon, so that was another wave that came through. Or another one
Hmm.
was I wasn't raised Mormon. I was raised Baptist, like extreme Southern Baptist, or evangelical, or Pentecostal, what have you, Catholic. And we were telling their stories. And then it was like, well, I'm a parent of a gay person, and I can relate. So we just tons of letters. And
You know, there's one thing that I'm curious about because I've heard you say that before, that you've really connected with a lot of folks who have escaped, for lack of a better term, an extreme religion. Have they all been Christian, or have there been any from other religions that have connected with you?
I think it's all Christians at this point.
I
Yeah.
find that so fascinating.
Well, because they're the most messed up.
Maybe. Perhaps. No, I interviewed a woman, and the episode was called, I don't know, getting out of the cult or something. Something. The word cult was in there. I should know that, but I don't remember. And the organization that she was part of was a Jews for Jesus thing. So they were
Yeah.
Jewish, but they were Christian.
Mm-hmm.
So still, that's the one common factor. I find it really interesting. And of course, we know that there are extremists in every religion. We
Yeah.
know that. I don't know.
Yeah.
Whatever. Tangent. Fascinating.
Well, I would like to talk to other, like almost survivors, I guess, of other religious toxicity, because that's what we're talking about. I mean, and this is what we say on our show too. If you go to some sort of congregation, or if you even go out in nature and feel spiritual, however you feel spiritual, we are great with that. And if your religion upholds everyone, like every single person on the planet is not only welcome there, they can get married there, they are upheld there, their values are honored there. That is great. We are all for religions that uphold everyone equally. What
Yeah.
I don't like, and what Mormonism seems to be, is a hierarchy. And it's based on the best, who does the most works, who seems to look the best. who's the most righteous, in quotes.
And it's all subjective to
Of
what they
course.
think work the best means, look the best means,
Well,
all of that.
it's judged by your bishop, and then above them, there's a stake president, and these men feel like they're entitled to ask you questions to determine your worthiness. And this is something that happens at 12, and it goes on through adulthood.
Yeah.
Every couple of years as an adult, you are required to sit with your bishop and have, this interview. This interview is
Right.
conducted about your worthiness. And your salvation is determined upon that interview. It can be taken from you.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot. There's a lot there. There's a
Mhm.
lot to unpack there. My question for you, though, with the work that you and Shelley are doing and what you're sort of envisioning now for yourself, what change do you believe is possible for people who have experienced religious toxic backgrounds? What do you hope to be a part of moving forward?
Yeah. Well, we are creating a space for healing. We talked to a therapist friend recently and had her on as a guest. She called it trauma bonding, I believe is the term, for when a group of
Yeah.
people have been through a similar trauma and now they have a safe space. They have a space where they can vent, they can share their stories, inspire others, because that's what's happening. We're sharing our stories and people are inspired by that. They're connecting to that. They
Yeah.
have now, we're allowing people to have the courage to share their stories, to stand up and speak their truth too. And I think Shelley being so candid and open is allowing
She
people,
is.
she's giving people the permission to do the same thing.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
Yeah.
And that's one of the amazing things the thing I love the most about Shelley is that she is able to just be out there. She doesn't worry about judgment. She doesn't worry about what anyone thinks of her. She doesn't seem to. I mean, that's the
Oh,
funny thing. She
she totally
does.
does.
She does,
Yeah.
but she says it anyway.
Yeah, which is that's the bomb. That's the
Yeah,
thing. Like I know there could be consequences from this. It does matter, but it's important and I have to speak up.
exactly.
And you're both doing that right now, and I just think it's so incredible. And I does it feel brave to you?
It does. It does feel brave, especially when I look at it from her perspective. When I look at my own life, I think we get so used to just living our lives, and we don't
Sure.
think about it in terms of I'm this or I'm that. I'm brave today. Like I think it's great that you on your podcast are helping people look at it in those terms. Like tell me the things that you're doing every day that actually are brave, and
Yeah.
let's share that with the world. I think that's fantastic, and I think
Thanks.
most people don't frame their lives that way. And finding my father, I never thought was a brave act because it was thrust upon me. It was something that I never wanted to do. I didn't ask for that, and it just fell in my lap. How I've used that to move around in the world, I guess you could look at it as brave. And I
Yeah.
think the reason why I wanted to share that story about my uncle is that I think that was a really brave moment when I was finally like, enough.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Especially as a child and a child who's gone through trauma of other sorts of numerous sorts, religious trauma and finding your dad and all of that. Um, it's very difficult for any young person, but especially a young girl, to tell somebody else no. We're not conditioned to do that. I
No.
mean, I think my children will be, and hopefully Shelley's children will be. The upcoming generations will be more empowered to do that, but we weren't. Not when we
Right.
were little. You just I mean, kind of like what your mom said. Well, that can't be true because then I've done something wrong, and
Right.
that's not acceptable.
Right.
You know.
Yeah, but you're exactly right. We, especially girls, are not trained, not raised to say no. Yeah.
Absolutely not.
It's
Because it's rude.
yeah, I guess that's true. That's how it's looked at. It's funny. I was talking to Shelley about I was watching some of her kids and the way they move around in the world. She has a son. I guess he was maybe 16 at the time. We went to the beach together as a group, as a family, as a group, and he was trying to get this kite in the air for their youngest for Shelley's youngest daughter and wasn't successful and he kept falling in the sand. And so he came back and he was huffing and puffing and trying to get this kite up and everybody was laughing and he had sand all over him and I remember him helping him wipe it off. But this girl that was a friend of the family, a friend of the other teenage daughter was there and she clearly had a crush on him. And so she came over to try to wipe the sand off of him. And he shrugged her off. And I'm like, wow, would a girl be able to do that? Because he was uncomfortable. It
Yeah.
made him uncomfortable. So he basically said no, in a
Yeah.
manner of speaking. He
Yeah.
shrugged her off. And I was like, wow, what would girls be able to do the same thing
To say,
in that
no, no,
position?
don't help me take the sand off.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm okay. Because
I hope
that
so.
doesn't make me feel comfortable. Obviously, they can't necessarily voice it in that same way, but would they take the action to
Sure.
protect themselves? I
Yeah.
don't know. But I don't know that
I
I
hope
would have been
so.
taught to do that.
I agree. But I hope that the work that you're doing and I'm doing, and that the people who listen to our shows and then go out into the world and do better because we know better, are changing that
Yeah.
for younger generations.
Yes.
I find just, I'm an observer. I listen to your show. I'm part of your social communities. I can see the impact that you're making, and I'm curious for you. How do you celebrate those types of successes, knowing that you are helping other people heal and changing lives, or even just when things for you personally go well, or something big happens? How do you like to celebrate?
Probably with a good sour, lambic sour beer.
I knew alcohol was going to be your answer.
No, but it's so amazing to be part of it. I don't know if I would call it celebration, but it's just that moment of stepping back, looking at the impact and thinking, "Oh my gosh, who else can we help?
Yeah.
How else can we spread this?" Like cuz I don't know, I just want to help everyone, and I want to end patriarchy, Heather. I do.
Me too. We're putting our best foot forward. That's for damn sure.
Yeah, because I don't want people to be oppressed. And if patriarchy means that women are oppressed, then I don't want to see that anymore. I don't want the opposite. I don't want now men to be oppressed. That's not what I'm after.
Well, it's like, I feel that way about the Black Lives Matter movement or anything that's social justice related. It's like a pie, right? You don't, you take a piece of the pie. You don't take the whole pie. Like you share it. It's together.
Sure.
Raising women up and removing the patriarchy does not knock men down. It just evens things out. Supporting Black Lives Matter doesn't actually mean all lives don't matter. It means that these lives are being killed and taken senselessly. And so those lives matter. And we've got to bring that to the forefront. And surviving religious, toxic growing up and all of that is, we want to bring it to the forefront, not because we want to take religion away from anyone, but because we don't want anyone to be harmed. You have to bring forward the thing that you want to change in order to make a difference.
Exactly. And, I want to come up with actually a different analogy than the pie, because what happens when all the pieces are gone? It's over. So the idea of taking a slice of pie and there's only 3/4 of the pie left, it feels like there's not enough for everybody. But I think there's enough for everyone.
I agree.
Like if we uphold this group, that doesn't mean that this other group is going to go without. I don't think.
I totally agree with you.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not getting the pie. I'll have to find it somewhere.
We'll
The
figure
pie
out this
analogy was
analogy.
done better than what I just did. I did not give it justice, but I agree that it never runs out. There's more than enough for everyone. 100% agree with you on that. I love the work you're doing. I love that you do it in a different way than Shelley does it, and that you do it in a different way than a lot of people do it. You have this wonderful, positive energy. We've talked about that before. You don't have any space for negative energy in your life, and that's just not how you roll through the world.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
I just want to live my life as if this is the best we get. Let's make the most of every second, seriously. Because
Totally agree.
we can't know what's happening in the afterlife. That's the whole thing. It's like I think my mother is really banking on these like paved roads roads of paved gold, or whatever the heck it is. It's streets of gold and like mansions of gemstones and pearly gates and that whole thing. It's like, it's so funny to me that views of heaven are based on what humans think has value.
Sure. Everything, though,
Right.
that we think is based on what we think has value. And it's all, how you're going to shift how you're going to shift it in your life.
Yeah, so we have to put our limited lens on something that we can't even explain. We don't even have words for what happens in the afterlife. But to make
Right.
sense of it, we have to put it in our limited human landscape. But but my mother thinks that the earth is crap because she's got this great reward waiting for her in heaven.
Well, that could be problematic.
Yeah.
But I don't begrudge anybody the idea that there could be an afterlife that they want to strive for, because I don't think it makes dying easier. I think it makes living easier.
Yeah.
And it makes losing people who pass before us easier because we don't feel like they're just gone. And I think that's fine. If that makes it easier for you to move through your days, I'm not going to begrudge you that.
I agree, but if you think that there's that something is going to be so much better in the afterlife, so you can just act like an asshole here, or you can just not enjoy yourself here, I don't think that's the answer either.
No, of course it's not the answer. And if all these theories of afterlife exist, you're going to get there. They're going to be like, "Fuck you, you weren't a very nice person. You didn't recycle. You didn't
recycle.
You allowed your child to be molested. Like, you did bad things. You can't come in."
Yeah, maybe if it even works that way.
Do you watch The Good Place?
I do.
I love that show.
I know.
And this idea, I don't, spoil alert, if you're just watching it or you're not caught up, then mute it for like 30 seconds. But this most recent season where they're like, oh, there's no human that's gone to heaven or to the good place, whatever that is, in a million years, because there's no way we could be good enough.
Right. And the example they gave was like, oh, well, I only bought organic vegetables. It's like, oh, well, then that vegetable farmer, did you know they were using beans from Monsanto or whatever? You know what I mean?
Like, you can't win.
Yeah.
You literally
accidentally.
can't win.
Yeah. You can't win because you can't make sure that all the people in that supply chain were doing exactly the right thing. Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't think it works like that. I do believe if there is an afterlife, and when you get there, that whomever is going to be there would say, wow, you really did the very best job you could.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to let you in. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if I believe in an afterlife or not, but if I do, I think if you do your very best and you're a good person and you help raise other people up, you got a real good chance.
Yeah, I would think. I mean, to me, the biggest sins are the ones that are done to others. I mean, if that's the thing, it's like, if you think about it, if you lie to somebody, then you're really hurting them.
Yeah.
If you steal from somebody, you're hurting them. So these are the things that we should not do to other people. Yeah. Between consenting adults, have at it. Go for it.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, Mary, clearly I could talk to you forever, and we do. Mary and I Marco Polo each other. Not enough, though. I missed you this week. Where have you been?
I know. I've been slammed, but I'm about to have some time open up, and I'm about to get a new phone, too, so that's going to help.
Oh, that's
my
exciting.
Camera sucks.
It's been unpleasant.
Yeah, our Marco Polo conversations are a little limited when my camera literally looks like it's got film over the lens. It's weird.
But before we finish the conversation, I do get to ask you, what is your favorite charitable organization to support?
Yeah, well, we are actually supporting Flourish Therapy as part of our podcast. All of our Patreon, 10% of our Patreon goals, that's one of the charities that we support. And Flourish Counseling Services, they offer subsidized therapy for the LGBTQ community. So
Awesome.
We are excited about them.
That's really cool. They will be our charity of the week. And listeners, if you don't already know them, get to know them. If you have something to give, time, money, likes on social media, whatever it is, I urge you to please go out and do that. Mary, I thank you so much for being here. We've been wanting to do this for a long time. I love the energy that you bring into any conversation and into the world at large, because we need more people who look at it from a glass half full standpoint and believe in our possibilities as a human race. So thanks for being you.
Oh, thank you so much. And I'll leave you on this. This whole afterlife conversation reminded me of a movie that I love. It's called What Dreams May Come.
Of course.
And the idea is whatever you thought was going to be your afterlife is what you get.
I love that.
It's interesting. It makes for an interesting storyline.
It really does.
Yeah.
It just doesn't hurt to live that way.
No.
Whatever you think it's going to be, will be.
Yeah.
I mean, mindset is mindset, right? In general, whatever you decide will be your story and your truth will be, and you actually have some control over it, listeners. So Mary mentioned their Patreon page, and you can check it out. What's your Patreon link?
Patreon.com/Latter Day Lesbian. One word.
And I just have to put a little lovely, friendly competition out, folks. Mary and Shelley are crushing the Patreon game, and I'm feeling a little sad that the Brave Files isn't really doing that. So we're trying, and I'm going to give you all a little bit more love this year. I'm learning all about it. But I want to do big, big things, and I cannot do it on my own. I need everybody's support. So I hope you'll check out our Patreon page, which is patreon.com/bravefiles, and find a tier that works for you. We have awesome goodies, but mostly you get to join our Brave community and do big, beautiful things together. We're lucky enough to have Mary and Shelley as a Patreon supporter in our Brave community, so thank you for that.
Sure thing.
And
back at you, by the way.
Yeah, thanks, baby. I am.
Yeah.
Because I believe in supporting artists who are doing things that make the world better and that I enjoy. And so I hope if you're listening to this show, you feel that way and you want to support the work that I'm doing.
But since we're supporting you and you're supporting us, we're canceling each other out.
That's
right?
not the point. That's not the point, Mary. Jesus, I support you on a higher level than you support me.
Oh my gosh. Wow. We'll have to go back and look at that. We'll have to adjust that.
No.
Because it's a competition.
That part is not a competition. But I would like to see us, level up a little bit, get a little closer to those Latter Day Lesbian girls.
Yeah.
Folks, I'm glad you're here. I hope you enjoyed this conversation, as I hope you do every week, and that something connected with you and inspired you. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Give us a call at 312-646-0205 and share what you love about the show. If you have any ideas or things we can try, let us know. Tell us how you're choosing bravely. And I hope that you're great. I hope you have a wonderful week ahead. And remember that you have more control over your life than you ever imagined. So go out each and every day and choose bravely. Today's show is brought to you by Audible. Audible is offering our listeners a free audiobook with a 30-day trial membership. Just go to audibletrial.com/thebravefiles and browse their unmatched selection of audio programs. Download a title of your choice for free and start listening. It's that simple. Just head to audiotrial.com/thebravefiles. You've been listening to The Brave Files, stories from people living courageously. To learn more about the show, find our show notes, or get some great bonus content, visit thebravefilespodcast.com. And we'd love to know what you think. You can give us a call at 312-646-0205. Let us know your thoughts on the episode, the show in general, or maybe share with us how you're out choosing bravely. This episode is brought to you by Vickery & Co. Success Coaching that helps you maintain a life well lived and a business well run. Learn more at vickeryandco.com. Our music is produced by Matt Lewis. Follow him on Instagram at mattmmusic or visit his website, theunionband.com. We couldn't do any of this without our extraordinary audio engineer, Andrew Olson. Learn more about him and check out his work at findandrewolson.com. And special thanks to our associate producer, Kim Statler. I'm your host and executive producer, Heather Vickery. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll talk to you next week.